Hi, I'm Jonah Comstock, Editor-in-Chief of pharmaphorum. I'm here at JP Morgan at the, is this the Hilton?
Yes, it is.
And I'm joined by Catherine Owen Adams, the CEO of Acadia Pharmaceuticals. We're going to talk a little bit about Acadia and about the neurospace more broadly. Thanks so much for meeting with me this morning.
Absolutely, pleasure.
So first of all, if folks don't know Acadia, tell us a little bit about what your focus area is and some of the projects that you're working on.
Right. So Acadia is a 30-year-old pharmaceutical company based in San Diego. We have two strong commercial products. One is for the treatment of the hallucinations and delusions associated with Parkinson's disease. That's Nuplazid. And the second is Daybue, which is for the treatment of Rett syndrome. And we also have a very strong pipeline of products coming through. I'm excited to announce some new things in the pipeline as we move into the next few days. And we have an incredibly strong balance sheet. So we're cash flow positive. And we have around $700 million plus to spend on driving more growth for the company moving forward.
What's sort of the core philosophy or the core scientific concept that holds all the products in your pipeline together?
Yeah, so Acadia's always had a focus on neuropsych in particular, and we have a strong focus on areas of high unmet medical need for patients that we serve. The acquisition of trofinetide and the launch of Daybue allowed us to move into the rare disease space. And so we now have a strong focus on neuropsych and rare disease. Daybue and Rett syndrome, it's a neuro-rare syndrome. And so I guess neuro is our core. But as we move forward, we're looking at adjacent spaces as well. We've built up strong R&D capabilities in neuro, and we have strong commercial capabilities. And we're looking now, how can we take those capabilities and maybe expand our focus slightly beyond neuro and rare to other areas and other adjacencies where we believe there's also areas of high unmet medical need where we can make a difference.
It's been an exciting couple of years in neuro, especially around Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, as we've kind of developed more understanding of the biomarkers that drive these diseases and help us understand them. So, taking a step back from your work, and I'm sure including your work, what do you see as kind of the big most exciting research trends in the neurospace going into this year?
Yeah, no, I think you bring up really the point that I find most exciting, which is the use of biomarkers now in neuro, and we're seeing more and more of that in clinical trials. And I think the importance of that is a couple of things. First of all is, ensuring that we have the right patient in the right clinical trial with the specific pathophysiology that we're trying to test, and making that clinical trial population more homogeneous. The second is, as we move towards commercialization, depending on how that product is approved and whether the biomarker is sort of a co-approval with it, is the payer space. And I think as we look at global healthcare and the value proposition that we're trying to drive, having a more specific population that we can talk to payers about that might be identified with a biomarker is a really important advancement in terms of innovation in the medical space.
You mentioned some exciting things in the pipeline that you're going to be talking about this week. Can you share any of those? This won't go out until after the show. So.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to be talking about our two later stage products coming through the pipeline. The first is ACP-204, which is a next generation 5-HT2A inverse agonist. And it's in clinical trials right now for Alzheimer's disease psychosis. And what we're going to be announcing tomorrow is an additional clinical trial in Lewy body disease psychosis, which we're very excited about. There's a lot of clinical focus on alpha-synuclein, and which we believe is the pathophysiology behind Lewy body dementia. And so we're going to have a second trial moving into Lewy body dementia with psychosis. So that's exciting. The other thing that we're going to be sharing is the Prader-Willi product that we have in the pipeline. It's called ACP-101. It's intranasal carbetocin, and it's for use in patients that have Prader-Willi for hyperphagia, for the treatment of hyperphagia. And that clinical trial is currently in phase 3. It's a global trial, and we are going to be finishing recruiting this year. And so we're really excited to share that we'll see the top line results of that trial very early next year. So that for us is a huge milestone.
And would you classify that as another rare?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Prader-Willi affects about 8,000 to 10,000 patients in the US. And so it's a slightly bigger population than Rett syndrome.
I want to talk a little bit about kind of political headwinds. I'm really interested in how folks are looking at the new administration and what might happen. And I know, especially for rare disease, there's a lot of unique considerations around the IRA. And so how do you think, as you're developing your pipeline, you said, you've got a strong balance sheet. How do you think about sort of like gauging for whatever might happen politically in the next 4 years?
So I think as pharma, we are used to, working with whatever administration is in the White House, and we look forward to continuing those discussions and deliberations with the new administration. I think for me, what's important is a couple of things. As you rightly said, the IRA is the biggest, discussion point that we're going to be continuing with this new administration. For us in Acadia, the pill penalty, or the small pill penalty of the 9 versus 13, is a very important aspect that we need to continue to educate on. I've been up on the Hill with Bio, as well as, individually with Bristol in a prior life, and educating senators about the impact of the 9 versus 13 is very interesting. They don't really understand that having a policy which targets small molecules versus large molecules can have a big impact on innovation. And why it's important for Acadia is because most of the molecules that we're using for neuro and beyond Acadia are small molecules, because they cross the blood-brain barrier, and larger molecules generally don't. And so having this 9 versus 13, which essentially penalizes small molecule development, is a real problem for developing drugs that are going to make advancements for patients with Alzheimer's disease or with Parkinson's disease or depression. So again, educating people about that is really important. Beyond that, there's other parts of the IRA which are important for us to focus on as a small company. The Orphan Cures Act is part of it. The various sort of tax considerations around R&D development. So we continue to want to have dialogue and ensure that the new administration is fully informed of the impact of some of these specifics.
Before we go, I want to just ask a little bit about this focus you have on treating these psychosis symptoms, hallucination symptoms. My grandfather died from Parkinson's a number of years ago, and at the time, my memory is that there was just really nothing to be done about the hallucinations. Right. They treated his pain symptoms, the doctor said, just kind of roll with it. So I mean, how has that evolved, and why is it important to treat those symptoms as part of the larger treatment paradigm in Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and in these rare diseases?
Yeah, no, let's unpack that a little bit. So you're not alone. Most families don't really understand that hallucinations and delusions are associated with Parkinson's disease, but we now know that about 50% of Parkinson's patients will actually have that during their disease progression. And I don't know if you remember with your grandfather, but it can have a huge impact on the quality of life of the family, and especially the family dynamic with the caregiver. So if your loved one sees things, hears things that you don't see, they can also start thinking things about you. They can focus on money. They can focus on other parts of your relationship and start saying things that aren't true, or that they believe are true but aren't. And it's a very disturbing situation. I'm also going through it with my mother and my father. So it's really debilitating for the patient, but also the family. And so the launch of Nuplazid in 2016 as the first and only FDA-approved product remains very exciting. The issue is that we need to keep the awareness levels high, both with the caregivers, but also with the physician community. And what we're seeing is that we need to invest in that through unbranded education, through direct consumer education, because doctors themselves don't necessarily educate all the time, the families. And so keeping that awareness level high, making sure people understand we're the first and only approved product. The other thing that's really important, Jonah, is that, doctors are using off-label antipsychotics for these patients to treat the hallucinations and delusions. And we now have real-world evidence to show that we have a mortality benefit versus those products using Nuplazid. And I think, for me, that's a really important point that we need to continue to get out there. So we have 5 years now of real-world evidence in very large thousands of patient populations, showing that you should treat these patients with an approved product and not an off-label product. And there's a mortality benefit associated with that.
Just to wrap up, I mean, this conference is always about looking ahead to the rest of the year and what are we expecting, the big trends, the big stories to be in 2025. So, just to pick, don't have to be comprehensive, but what are some things you're kind of excited about this year?
I think as an industry as a whole, excited about the reinvigoration of the M&A space, and today's deal for J&J was an exciting sort of focus on neuro for us as well. I think continuing for us to grow commercially, grow strategically through M&A is something that I'm looking at specifically. And in terms of the science, for me, biomarkers, as we've already discussed, new chemical entities coming through for neuropsych, and having a real look at the rare space and ensuring that we're looking at other potential areas for us to invest in is what I'm looking forward to. So yeah, lots of good things ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine. It's been a really pleasure chatting with you.
And you. Thank you so much.
Have a good show.